I want to ask a specific, though. You've expended a certain amount of reputational energy and much more on the jihadists. In your battles, shall we say there, how much allyship, to use a very voguish term, have you found from fellow secular, rational people who want to love and reason like you?
Well, that is a leading question, isn't it?
I've got fingers if you need more.
Yeah. No, your fingers are safe. No, unfortunately, but but this is a problem of, I wouldn't ascribe this to, well, the allies you can easily find among deeply religious Christians, say, are there for the wrong reasons. Right. I mean, so I can find, I can go into.
Are there wrong reasons for that?
Well, no, they're
wrong reasons.
They're there for the wrong. Well, they see the problem clearly for the wrong reasons. So, for instance, I meet secular scientist types, anthropologists, say, who are so far from knowing what it's like to believe in revelation that they don't believe anyone else does. Oh. Right. So when you tell them that members of ISIS really believe that if you die in the right circumstances, you get 72 virgins, and you're in, surrounded by rivers of milk and honey and all the rest. If you go into the ivory tower, you meet people who don't believe that anyone believes that stuff. But if you go into a mega church, they know people believe that stuff because they believe their own dogmas, right? That's what it's like to be effortlessly right for not especially good reasons. The fact that you believe a book was written by God, and therefore it's trivially easy for you to understand that someone else believes that, but they just have the wrong book. That's not the rational basis for understanding our circumstance that we're looking for.
I'm not saying whether one is right and one is wrong, but one seems to have more commitment in that. And in one battle you're fighting, commitment may be important.
Yeah,
and
indeed.
There may be many reasons why the people who deeply want to love and be rational are absolutely no damn use in that fight. Because they want to preserve their happiness a bit longer, preserve their comfort a bit longer, cannot understand people who genuinely come from a fundamentalist standpoint.
Yeah.
And
there's also other, to steelman their case for a moment, it is understandable to be sensitive to and guilty about the history of colonialism and the reality of racism, and to be so committed to tolerance as your master virtue that you're tempted to tolerate intolerance and not recognize it to be cowardice, which in fact it is.
Making tolerance your core value is much different than making truth your core value, which is an interesting thing, because, and perhaps this is one of the places where you and the fundamentalist radical leftists, let's say, differ, is that the core value that's emerging there is definitely one of tolerance, whereas the core value that you espouse is one of truth. And truth and tolerance are not the same thing.
Yes, it is.
And so it might also,
nor is the pursuit of truth and the belief that as a result truth can be found, that it's not a single thing on its own, you just pursue it as a hobby. It's just something you do, but that you believe that at the end of it there is a truth to be found.
Yeah. But Douglas, what do you fear is the case here? If there were more people like me in the West, right? Well, maybe I'm the outlier here. I'm somehow infected by this overweening commitment to truth and rationality and science, and yet I'm still motivated to worry about jihad. But you're worried that there are many people like me who are oblivious to the problem.
Why are you worried about it when so many other people who are hypothetically, this is the question you asked, why are you so worried about when there's so many people who are hypothetically like you that don't seem to be worried about it? I mean, maybe you're wrong and you shouldn't be worried about it, although Douglas is obviously worried about it too.
One answer is a possibility, it's my worry at any rate, that we may be living in an era when we are discovering that the Enlightenment and the Enlightenment's values never went very wide and didn't go terribly deep. And this is a very painful realization to make. But not only do we go all around the world and discover that, we find that at home. The roots turn out not to have gone very deep in even this society. And that's a problem.
It is a problem, but hence my commitment to making them deeper.
And to reiterate the point, I'd be very happy if it was entirely Sam Harris's all the way down.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay? I'd have no problem with that. It's just that underneath Sam Harris, it's hell.
Well, I'm also curious.
You know me too well.
Curious about something that you said.
Yeah, that has to be very carefully edited on YouTube.
In the metaphysic that you outlined, rationality in the service of love, like this is an interesting, like I'm not sure you get away with that, because like is it rationality or is it love? Because I don't understand the place in your conceptual system for love, given your emphasis on rationality as the ethic of as the mechanism of ethics. So I would say, to the degree that I smuggle in Jesus, which by the way isn't accidental in some sense, and I'm fully conscious when I'm doing it, you smuggle in love, and it essentially plays the same role.
Well, no, love is an experienced reality. I mean, love is a state of consciousness. It's a state of, and I wouldn't ultimately.
Is it a fact?
Well, it's a fact that one can experience it or not.
Well,
to varying degrees.
Yeah, but that's not the same thing.
No, it is. No, it is. I mean, there are.
It's a fact that you can experience something, but the thing that you're experiencing is there's also the thing that you're experiencing as a fact.
Well, no, there are facts about the range of human experiences. I mean, I think, and not even just human, just conscious experiences. That if we can build computers that can feel love, I mean, that's not inconceivable, and we'll either succeed in doing that or not. But consciousness admits of a range of experiences, and love is one of the best on offer. It's not the only one we care about, but it's the one that anchors us to a positive commitment to the well-being of other conscious systems. And
but
the crucial thing is
the fact. I agree with you.
It is a fact that loving someone entails a really, I mean, there are love and its counterfeits, right? People can confuse, romantic, attachment or lust with love, right? So, I mean, and the Buddhists are especially good at differentiating these various states of consciousness, and it's this true pleasure, mental pleasure in the company of another that is colored by a commitment to their well-being, a wanting them to be happy, a wanting to have their hopes realized, a non-zero-sum commitment or sense of your entanglement with them. And you can see your failures to love. I mean, you can be with people who you think you love. I'm with my best friend, say, and I just find out something fantastic has happened for him, and let's say in his career, and I feel a moment of envy, say. Well, then you see, just how much do you love this person if your first reaction to something good happening to them is you feel poorer for it, right?
That's the Cain and Abel story.
Exactly. So these are all kinds of defects you can witness in your own mind, and yes, you pay enough attention to what it's like to be you. The full horror show of an almost biblical unwinding of all possibility is available, and you add psychedelics to that cocktail, and it gets even more vivid. But
so are you saying that
this is
your claim that that's a
fact? These are facts about the human mind, and it is also factual to say that it is possible to navigate in this space. It is possible to design institutions and social systems and ethical commitments that help us navigate in this space. And it's not that we all have to get up every morning naked and try to rebuild civilization and all of human wisdom for ourselves each day. We inherit the most useful tools. You don't have to figure this all out for yourself. And my appeal to you is that we should want to use all the best tools available without hamstringing ourselves by this notion that certain tools must be the best for all time, or certain books must be read on every page with equal diligence because this book came from the creator of the universe. When we're reading Marcus Aurelius, if he gets something catastrophically wrong on page 17, we say, well, what the hell? He lived 2,000 years ago. There's no way he knew everything, right? And we turn the page.
Okay,
right?
so
we can't do that with the Bible
so
and the Quran.
Here's a mythological representation of that. So there's an ancient idea, a very ancient idea, that when you face the void, what you do is confront it and leap into it. And what you discover at the bottom is a beast, and inside that beast you discover your father lying dead, and then you reanimate your father and you bring him back to the surface, and that's the means of dealing with the void, right? And so in essence, in some sense, that's just what you said. You said that
except that, again, there's something confabulatory about that, because you can do I could change the valence of virtually every word you use there, and it would also sound profound and true. I could swap father for mother, and I could swap void for mountaintop, and it could be the same seemingly archetypal journey, and someone could make sense of it.
It's not that easy, Sam. Like, that's the same thing.
It's damn easy. I've done it with a cookbook.
But look, if it's that easy, then you can write great novels. And you can tell great stories. Well, if it's that easy, it's not that easy to write a great story. So these things can't be swapped out with ease. And there is a reason that it's your father that you rescue from the belly of the beast and not your mother in those sorts of situations.
Yeah, but
it is akin to...
Again, I give you Buddhism and Hinduism that have completely different iconographies and mythologies.
Well, they're different at some levels, but not at all. It's like languages. They're different at some levels and not at all.
They're crucially opposite in many of these cases. I'm just saying that this kind of reading meaning into story there's a reason why it's not science, because it is in some basic sense unfalsifiable. There's nothing you and I can do for the rest of our lives to be sure that the mother isn't at the bottom of that void and it's really the father.
Is it possible to develop a factual approach to the analysis of literature?
Well, yes, on its own terms. You can say, well, but that extends to things like, it is a fact that Hamlet was the Prince of Denmark and not the king.
No, I meant in terms of the meaning of literature.
Well, yeah, but you can make true and false claims, or more and less plausible claims about literature.
Well, that's what I'm trying to do, is to make more plausible claims. On you.
But again, this is a very different game than what most religious people think is on offer.
Well, look, if...
Wow, wow, wow. Again, these three intellectual giants, they're out there in the ocean of the philosophical waters, folks. And they're waiting out there. They're not coming into shore. They're going out to the deep, deep, deep end of these philosophical waters. Does anybody need a life preserver to stay afloat as these ideas come cascading as tidal waves into each other? I mean, it is just absolutely amazing to hear these, these absolute brilliant men bounce their ideas off of each other and hear what they think is rationale for their answers and their thoughts, while the other thinks that maybe their thoughts aren't so rational, that they're irrational, or that they don't have any meaning, and they kindly try to, deflect that off and then say, yeah, but I don't quite exactly see it that way. It really, should be this. And so, in the beginning, Douglas, just said the point about, and the point I make about this video is that, should we be tolerant to intolerance? And it seems that that's what a lot of people do. They just don't want to get involved. They want to go about their daily lives. They don't want to get involved. They don't want to, tip the table over. They want to tiptoe, through the tulips, right? They want to tiptoe around the eggshells. They don't want to crack anything. They don't want to step on anything. They don't even want to crack anything. They don't want to touch anything. In fact, they don't really want to stay away from the eggs completely then. But we have to learn that it is not beneficial to be tolerant to those who are intolerant, especially to those that have come and are not from the country that they're in. This was specifically, I think, mentioned by Douglas, the fact that when you've got immigrants that are coming into European countries, and now basically saying that the values and the things that these European countries are not good, and that our values, our customs, they need to be supplanted in this country because of religious reason, religious doctrine, or whatever that is. And that's just not what should be the case. And especially when in Western societies, some of those customs, some of those practices, some of those religious faiths or whatever have some ideas that people would consider to be very, very intolerant in Western secular society. So there's that from Douglas's part. Then Jordan Peterson made a point. He talked about, is love factual? You know, or the rationality of factual love. How rational is that? How do you know if you're in love? Is that a fact that you're in love? Is it a feeling? And Sam Harris was saying, oh, absolutely, you can tell love is, but he didn't really explain it. If somebody tells me, can you rationally explain love? You can't. Can you factually, can you factually say you're in love? Well, you feel you're in love, you define it as love, but there's all kinds of love. There's a love between a spouse, love between obviously husband and wife, love between how you love your mother, your father, your brother, your sister, how you love your friends, even love your enemies. There's all aspects of love. And then Sam Harris, when he chimed in, he talked about, well, okay, you know what? Someday we're going to be able to build robots and artificial intelligence that's going to be able to feel love. I pretty much bet the house that that's never going to happen. Because on Sam's end, he's basically saying that this love feeling, that this soul that we have that can experience love, I believe Sam would say, from what I've read of his works, he believes that a soul is only put there because of religious reasons, from religious faiths, that there's a soul, something inside the body that makes us who we are. But Sam would argue and say that that's not necessarily has to come from a creator or a divine presence. That's there in the body itself. Won't explain how it got there, what that is, that soul, but it's just there, doing the same thing, just without the divine intervention of a divine spirit, a creator, a God, using that soul and then placing that into our bodies to be who we are. And the soul is a part that never dies. The body does. So those are the kind of things that they're talking about in terms of that. And so, like I said, is robots really, Sam? You're going to be able to put emotion, that emotional, whatever you want to call it, that's in our brain, that's in our heart, that's in our soul, even if you don't believe that's coming from a divine entity, you're going to put something in so that a robot, now remember, we are going to be the creators of these robots. We are going to be the God. They're going to able to see. We can't obviously see that metaphysical God, that metaphysical creation, the metaphysical divinity, that spirit. We're taking that on faith, but robots aren't going to have to take that on faith because they're going to be able to feel us, see us, hear us, touch us. We're the ones that are going to program. So you want to program love into a robot? That's fine, but that's not doing it on its own. So I don't know where Sam was going with that. And then finally, we're talking about this thing in terms of reading meaning into stories. And this is where my thing is with Jordan Peterson, that he has these allegorical stories and allegorical fables and other things from other subsectors or strata of humanity, where these stories have come from, like the Mesopotamians and from the African American tribes and from the American Indian tribes. And there are these stories that have come through the ages. And so he's taken them at factual face value that these things actually occurred. whether they occurred in the physical realm or the metaphysical realm. And so when he puts these stories out there, he's almost putting them out, this Jordan Peterson, he's almost putting them out as they are a factual representation of something that actually occurred. And Sam is saying, whoa, just wait a minute. How do you know that those stories are true? How do you know that you jumped in the void, your father was there in the belly of the beast, you rescued your father, brought him out, and okay, but he says, I could do the same thing and say I replace father with mother. I'm on a mountaintop. I jumped from the mountaintop into the void, and I took my mother out from the belly of the beast. And Jordan goes, wait, you can't do that. That's just, if it was that easy, you could make up your own stories. Well, just because a story or an allegorical fable has been made and has been there for thousands of years and has been told and retold and retold and retold through the eons, well, Sam just made up a story right now. It just started today. And now you got to see whether or not your story is going to be able to propagate itself for eons and eons. And many millennia, centuries from now, somebody's going to say, well, you know what? I jumped from a mountaintop into the void and saved my mother from the beast. And someone's good, that's true. So in this aspect, when Jordan Peterson is talking about this, like I said, I do have to side with Sam that it is just that easy. Now, whether or not people are not, and people are going to read into it themselves, how they want to interpret these stories. We do the same thing with literature. We do that with all the holy books, with the New Testament, the Old Testament, the Quran, the Veda, the Sanskrits, all these things. Everybody, humans, we read it, we decide, we interpret it, and then we have our own beliefs about it. Some things are pretty cut and dry. Other things are a little bit more esoterical, go into the non-physical realm, and therefore you have different interpretations of that. But that's because everybody's going to have their own depth of how much they want to get involved with reading those stories and then taking them into their own context and deciding how it fits into their purpose, into their lives, and go from there. Anyways, folks, we appreciate you taking the time to watch. You've been watching the Dr. Nasir Shaikh Show. I've been your host. My name is Dr. Nasir, and if you haven't done so already, and we'd love for you to subscribe to our channel if we've earned it and you think our content is great. Check out our other content or other videos here and below. I'll leave you with my final thought, which is, when you're right, you're right, and when you're left, you're wrong. Until next time, folks, take care and stay safe.